people who want to know what is the Keith Andrew Network, the whole point of my talk show is to show you that even with having a learning disability, I can still amount to something. And at the same time, I'm able to turn myself into an example for people out there dealing with any types of learning disabilities and disabilities, and never give up and prove people wrong. Prove to them that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be, so prove them and still amount to something.
Hey peeps, this is the artist formerly known as Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Anderson, and I just had a fantastic conversation with my boy Keith Andrew, and I think you should check it out. I really enjoyed it, and I hope you will too.
Today on the Keith Andrew Network, we have a very special guest for a very special episode. It's 1016. That is right, 1016 episodes of the one and only Keith Andrew Network. Today, we have TNA WWE legend Mr. Kennedy, also known as Mr. Anderson, and welcome to the Keith Andrew Network universe.
Hey, thanks for having me. Congratulations on having so many episodes. That's really cool.
No, absolutely. It's about proving people wrong, that labels do not dictate who you are and who you're going to be. So prove them, it gets them out to something. So hashtag break the labels. With that being said, 28 minutes of your time, half hour, you can say anything you want, say anything, freedom of speech, self-expression. As we're talking, I have now a perfect background. As we're talking right now is a black screen, but if you're watching on YouTube, it has a red background and the actual title belts. Now how, for an example, the WWE has those spinning titles. Now, on the show, because you are a former Intercontinental Champion and United States Champion, those will be seen on the screen. I want to ask you the easy questions to the hard-hitting ones. Tell our this is going to sound like an oxymoron. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you do.
I'm a wrestler, man. I've been a wrestler now for 25 years. I've always wanted to be an entertainer since the time I was a kid. E.T. was the first movie that I recall seeing in the theater with my mom, and I asked her, how do I do that? How can I be Elliot? And at the time she just said, it's virtually impossible. You have to know the right people. You have to live in a certain place. And I just never really thought it would be possible until I was introduced to the wrestling business in about 97, when Austin was having his big run. The Attitude Era was kicking off. And I fell in love with it. And then I realized that I had been missing out on this brand of entertainment, this art form for so long. And it was a great combination of all the things that I loved anyways. It was athleticism. It was, it required you to be in shape, bodybuilding, little bodybuilding, and that entertainment aspect of it. And I dove in head first, and I started training in 1999. I wrestled on the independents for about 5.5 to 6 years. And then I got signed with WWE. I went to developmental for like six or 7 months. Then I finally got called up on the active roster, and that was 2005, and here we are. Feels like a lifetime ago.
It's funny because they tried to do that with ECW. They brought it back, and then they tried to make it its own brand. But it felt like, it had potential. Look at NXT. NXT is for upcoming superstars. Even old stars go back and get re-imaged, but we can talk about that in a little bit. But one of the things I wanted to say is OVW is where a lot of people got their starts. Randy Orton, Dave Bautista, Brock Lesnar. A lot of people may or may not know Brock Lesnar debuted on WWF Raw in 2001. And what if he did debut after the night of WrestleMania 17 instead of 18. But there's a dark match I can send you that if you're interested. But
Yeah.
there's so many things that AJ Styles, he was there, and then he was let go. Christopher Daniels, Chris Harris. There's
Mhm.
so many people that got their start on a dark match. Let me ask you: have you ever had a dark match? And what is that for people who don't know what it is?
So I had actually a ton of them in the 5 years leading up to me getting signed by WWE. And a dark match is basically a match that is generally occurs at a TV taping or a pay-per-view, and it is just for the audience. So it doesn't go out on TV. And it's oftentimes it's sort of a proving ground. They'll give somebody who is sort of a bigger star or an up and coming star on the roster. They want to give them sort of crowd exposure and working in front of a crowd and working a TV style match without necessarily having to be on TV. And so oftentimes they'll feed local guys. And yeah, it was just, I always looked at, when I first broke into the business, I remember hearing a lot of the guys, a lot of the older, more experienced wrestlers thought, hey, they won't take you seriously if you do those dark matches. Back in the day, they used to call them jobbers, ham and eggers. They would just be squash matches. And the idea was if you went and did these enhancement matches and got squashed, that you would just be sort of an embarrassment and they would never look at you seriously. And I just felt right out of the gates that just was not the case anymore. And I remember talking to Kevin Kelly, if anybody remembers. Kevin Kelly was like an announcer at WWE. When I first started doing dark matches and extra work, he was the guy that was in charge of bringing in locals. And he would always tell me, like, you just need to get your foot in the door. You need to just keep working, just keep coming around. So I sent my first tape about 11 months after I broke into the business. I sent a tape to WWE and I got a call back a week later. Crazy enough. I didn't expect it. I thought I was going to have to send a bunch of tapes and probably get no answers. And I was shocked. Kevin Kelly called me a week or two later and he said, I liked your tape. I'd like to bring you down to be an extra for Raw and SmackDown in Chicago and Milwaukee. And from that point forward, I knew that my foot was in the door. That foot, it was just like a toenail just hanging over the edge of the door. But I knew that I had to keep sort of massaging that. And I would always check their website. And whenever I would see that WWE was going to be anywhere near where I lived, I would ask, hey, can I be an extra for this? And oftentimes he would say, no, I'm sorry. We're already using so-and-so's guys for that show. But every once in a while he would kind of surprise me, like I said, I lived in Green Bay or close to Green Bay. And he booked me in Columbus, Ohio, or Cleveland, Ohio, and Detroit, and St. Louis, Missouri, and a bunch of different places. So it was really cool. But I just kept calling. I called every 3 months or so. I would call or send a tape. Hey, what are you guys looking for? Is there anything that I could do differently? And I remember Dr. Tom at one point took over for Kevin Kelly, Dr. Tom Pritchard, and he told me, he goes, honestly, Ken, if we don't know what we're looking for. If we could bottle it and sell it, we would, but we just don't know. However, I do know when I see something that I like. He's like, I can't tell you what it is right now, but every so often somebody will come by and like, that's it. So I just had to keep plugging away and trying. And Sean Davari and I were really good friends, really good buds. And we sort of had that same drive and same mentality. And that's all we did. We did pretty much the only thing we cared about was what do we need to do to get hired by WWE? So we figured out that formula.
Well, you bring up a good point. And then next, there's so many things I want to ask you, but good thing I wrote them down. And this is now like a Chinese menu or something. It's just an index card. So the first question
Hey,
I want
I'm the same way. Like I have to write stuff down or I'll forget it immediately. So
the question I want to ask you is, how do you get WWE's attention? Because I'm trying to get their attention, and the reason I bring it up, you all, sorry, starstruck, not kissing your ass or anything, but when I don't do my interviews as a way, my disability shows more. Hint of the show. Now, the question I want to ask you, with everything that you accomplished, and you actually created your own wrestling school. So, two questions in one. Have you worked with people with disabilities besides me? And for someone who has disabilities who want to get WWE's attention, even if they don't become a wrestler, they want to become a broadcast announcer or just work backstage. What is some of your advice?
So for me, I believe that if you love wrestling and you have something that you would like to contribute to the wrestling business, there is a job for you somewhere. There's there's a bunch of jobs. There's not just wrestlers. There's referees, there's managers, there's, like you said, broadcast commentators. Hell, you could start your own wrestling company and start booking people, you never know. So I give everybody an opportunity. All I ask is that people work hard and they're kind to one another and look out for each other. And so far, we've got a pretty good track record. I feel like, I don't want to say family because that sort of sounds cultish, I think, but it is we care about each other there, and we do look out for each other, and we train people from all walks of life. I don't care race, ethnicity, gender, disability or not. I think that there has to be a way. I am not going to ever tell somebody, you know what, you're too disabled to do this business. Like, who am I to say that? I think at the end of the day, we're all just different anyways. We call them disabilities, but it's just different. And yeah, so it would depend on the circumstance. I don't know a whole lot about you personally, but I think I start everybody off at square one, and some people require more attention, more sort of like, some people just get it, right? They're those born athletes. They just, you don't even have to show them. You just tell them what you want done and they do it. And then there's other people like myself that had to be shown time and time and time again. So
no, I agree.
I've gotten.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've gotten very good at being patient. I think I was less patient. I mean, I was a hothead once upon a time. And even when we started the school in 2016, I was a little quicker to, like, if somebody wasn't, if I tell them to do something and they weren't paying attention exactly, or they were goofing off, I'd snap. I don't do that anymore. Like, I try to treat people the way that I want to be treated, and nobody likes to be talked down to. Like, just I don't even yell at my kids. I talk to them.
No, that's the best way to do it. And I would love to work with you. Now, I know you train wrestlers, but do you also train people to be broadcast announcers or referees or timekeepers?
Yeah, we train referees, we train managers. I guess I don't necessarily work on the broadcasts aspect of it. However, I do have contacts locally, even in Minnesota, that that could lead you down the right path. There's a company that we work with on a regular basis. We've got a very close working relationship with, who offers our students a home when they're ready to start having matches. Then there's several of them, but one of them in particular has their own little YouTube show, and they have commentators, and so I'm sure that something could be figured out where you might be able to help out, contribute to that, and like any foot in the door is a foot in the door, you know. Like I would, any thread that you find, I would pull at that thread if you really want to do it.
No, I agree.
Wayne Gretzky, I believe it was Wayne Gretzky, said you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
I like the expression. I don't know where I heard it from, but I know I heard it. If you aim high and miss, I will be proud of you. But if you aim low and hit, I will be disappointed.
Yeah. Mm.
Now, there's a couple names I want to run past you. My friend Scotty, you know, probably know him as Raven, and we were talking off the air, and well, he said, Keith, I'm going to be honest with you. I think you have your head up your ass. And my dad says the same thing, that I live in my own fantasy world. But that's the reason I did the show. I fall under the spectrum of being retarded. I read and learn at a fifth grade level. I was unable to go to college because I'm not qualified. But look at what I was able to do for the past 10 years. I created my own talk show. I interviewed, thanks to you, 1,016 people. So this is my way of saying, hey, I don't have a BA or a bachelor's, or some people would say I have a bachelor's in BS because I have diarrhea of the mouth. But I'm doing what I love. So hopefully this does open a door for me. Now, are there limitations? Obviously, I can't wrestle myself out of a wet paper bag, but there's something, as you said, there's something. If there's a job, there's something you can do.
There really is. There's, you know, people would oftentimes, you know, be family members who would sort of say, like, what are you going to do once you can't wrestle anymore? And I was like, to be honest with you, I don't know, but I think I'll be okay because there's other jobs in wrestling. And I guess I had always considered opening a wrestling school, but now that I've done it, it's one of the most rewarding. I mean, it's just as rewarding to me to see my students figuring it out and see those light bulb moments, as it was for me to win the Money in the Bank briefcase at WrestleMania, or, you know, that kind of stuff. Be in the ring with and have the lights go out and hear the dong for the first time, you know, and Undertaker come down. Like, I remember standing in the ring. It was Oklahoma City, I believe. It was a house show, and the lights went out, and I heard the gong, and I fucking got goosebumps and said, "How the fuck did I get here? Why? How is this happening?" You know, and honestly, for me working with Taker for as long as I did, it never went away. I never got bored standing in the ring. I had to sit through his 10-minute long entrance every night. And I never got bored. I was never like, come on, man, let's speed it up. You know, just took it in.
You know, it's funny that he actually explained recently, he said something like, if the match is going to be bad or if the match is going to be short, he purposely made his entrance even longer.
Yeah, I heard that. I did hear that.
But when you were in Impact Wrestling, you know, when you did that, you probably get sick of being asked wrestling questions, but I don't want you to think, oh, he's one of these people. When you did that promo about Paul Levesque, Triple H, and for people who don't know who Paul Levesque is, Triple H, when he did that whole, and he's in bed with his wife, was that real, or was that like predetermined? Okay, I need to do a promo. Who can I shoot on?
I didn't want to do it. They pitched it to me. They gave me a script, and it was Vince Russo was writing the TV at the time, and he handed me a script, and it had like pretty much a burial on there of Triple H and sort of the WWE. And I remember I changed it. I changed it entirely, and I went out there, and I was because I just felt like if I go out here and whine and say all this stuff, I'm going to look like it's just sour grapes, you know. It's going to look like I'm I'm not taking any responsibility for being fired. I'm blaming everybody else for it. And I went out there and I did not say anything near what ended up being on TV. And I came back through the curtain and Vince came right up to me and he said, "Bro, that's not what I wanted, man." And then he sort of talked me onto the ledge and, "Look, this is what happened to you. This is how you felt. And I'm giving you an opportunity. Like, you need to go out there." He goes, "We need to do this again. We need to shoot it again." And so it was the first and only time in my career that I actually had to go out in front of a crowd. And I said, normally we do everything in one take here. However, we're filming a TV show. And I was just honest with them because I thought if I go out there and I do this again, they're going to shit all over it because they're going to be like, what's going on here? Why are we seeing this a second time? Or a variation of the first time, right? And I just told them, like, just honest, we need to do this again. So this is take 2. Please just, play along with me. And they did. They were happy. It was almost like, oh, he's letting us in. We're part of the show too. So, but yeah. And then, I said what I said. And looking back on it, honestly, I cringe watching it. Just because it's exactly what I told you I thought was going to be the case in the first place. It's just me complaining. It's just me blaming somebody else for my downfall. And really, at the end of the day, I'm the reason that I got fired. I'm the reason that things didn't work out well there. So,
Well, if
me alone.
If it makes you feel better, I quit more jobs when I like to count. My dad likes remind me of how many jobs I had in a year. I was actually fired one time, but he likes to say, "Well, how many jobs did you quit?" And it's like, "Okay, 13." But that's because most of the people are assholes. I worked at US Polo, and I know this is not about me, but just being honest, he always liked to say to me, "This is why we don't hire people like you." And I was like, if I was black, if I was Spanish, if I was anything, I would say you're being racist. But because we're two white people, it's all, I guess, it makes it okay for him to say, "This is why I don't hire people like you."
Wow. I'm sorry. It's crazy. How long ago was that?
Oh, 10 years ago.
Still 10 years ago. And we're still, I don't know. I feel like things have gotten a lot better in the last few years, and we have a long ways to go. To just empathizing with people and understanding that everybody's different. We all see the world different. We experience different things. You and I can look at an accident can occur right in front of us. We can be standing next to each other, and an accident occurs, and the police are going to interview us, and we might have 2 completely different accounts of what we saw. I was thinking about this earlier, how, with the political divide in this country, right? Like, some people can watch Fox News and think, my God, this is horrible. This is horrendous. And MSNBC and CNN are just perfectly normal, and vice versa. It's just like we can look at the same thing and have a completely different experience. And I think we just need to be more empathetic towards each other. And I think we're getting there, though.
No, you're absolutely right. I'm not a fan of Trump. I think he's a Russian puppet, among other things. But I did agree with some things that he said. And I voted for Joe Biden. He seemed like a nice guy, but everyone has skeletons in the closet. There's no one perfect. If you say you're perfect, you're full of shit. There's always something that people can pull out. But we can talk about that on another episode. But
I hate them all equally, honestly. Like, I think they're all criminals.
They are.
And they all take our money and they spend it on whatever they want to. They don't, I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and there's potholes everywhere in the streets and stuff. It's just none. And one of my friends, is sort of a political neophyte, right? He like doesn't follow politics at all. And I was kind of like picking his brain. How do you go through life kind of not knowing what's going on? And he said, honestly, everybody like bends over backwards and screams and jumps up and down and ruins every day of their life by watching the news and getting riled up for whatever the news tells you to be riled up about. But he said, my life isn't different. Day-to-day operations, I don't know, and I don't see anything different when one person's in office versus another person. Nothing really changes. You know, you hear about these things that change, and I guess occasionally, like, there are significant changes that occur, but it's, for the most part, nothing ever changes. They always say they're going to do all this stuff, and none of it ever happens, no matter if it's a Democrat or a Republican. So,
No, absolutely.
anyway.
If I'm going to give you an extra 15 minutes because I enjoy talking to you, and because this is a special episode, there's a couple of subjects I want to talk to you about. There's this video. When I see it, it really pisses me off, and it's, and you, of course you can curse. When you look at these, you think wrestling fans are fucking idiots because there's no repercussions. And when I give you an example, I will definitely send you this video, I promise. And it may piss you off, but I do apologize. You know, you can say what you want, or you go to pay, you get to yell, but you don't throw shit. And that doesn't, bother me. What bothers me is one of the scenes as a special ed person who had Down syndrome. He hugged Nikki Bella, and he forced himself on her. And it's kind of like, it doesn't make it right. Or there's another one where Alexa Bliss is being carried to the back, and a kid smacks her ass. It's kind of like, where do you step in of saying, okay, it's funny, to, okay, now you're being disrespectful? Because you've been in the wrestling business a lot of times, a lot of years. Have you ever had any confrontation with fans say, man, to be freaking professional or get out of my face?
I really haven't. I sort of feel like, at least none off the top of my head. I was always like, I've always been very interactive with the crowd when I can be. And I think when I mess with people, they've always sort of known that I was goofing. Like, I was just, because it's, I don't know, the way that I carried myself or the way that I looked at them or kind of smirked, they could tell, like, oh, we're just playing here. So I've never personally had a problem. Obviously, when I first broke into the business, it was kind of, you almost hoped somebody would hop into the ring. You see these, there's a couple of videos online. There's one on YouTube of Hunter, Triple H wrestling Austin, and Mike Chioda is the referee, and a fan jumps in and goes after Austin, and Triple H beats his ass, and then Mike Chioda just kicking him. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I saw that.
It's glorious. It was pretty awesome. There was another experience. I was on a house show with the opening contest was Gregory Helms, so the Hurricane, Shane Helms, and Jamie Noble. And so we're watching backstage, and on it was a house show, so there was only like one camera on a tripod. It was like black and white. We just sit there and watch the monitor, just if we wanted to watch the matches. And all of a sudden I see something going on in the ring, and we watched the tape back later, and it was Shane came out and he was jaw jacking with one of the fans in the front row, and the fan, slowly sort of, like, Shane got in the ring and he held the ropes open, and you're like, come on, man, come on. He's still just playing at this point. It's not really an invitation to get in the ring.
Yeah.
Most people know this is part of the show. And this dude came over the guardrail, But you watch, it's like he's going really slow. So he like puts half his leg over, and then he's like looking around, and he puts his foot down, and then he picks up the other one nice and slow, and he's still talking to him. And then he told us backstage, because they brought him back. They're like, "What were you thinking, man?" And he was like, "Hey, man, he was making fun of my girl, and I was just standing up for her." And then he told me to get in the ring, and he goes, I came over the railing like really slowly. I thought security was going to stop me, but when they didn't, I got both feet on the ground on the other side of the rail. I would have looked like a pussy, so I was committed. I had to do it. And he slid in the ring, and Shane beat him up. Like Shane whooped his ass a little bit before before security finally got in there. But I think that doesn't fly today. I think if that happened to me, somebody jumped in the ring, I would. I definitely wouldn't. I wouldn't lay hands on them unless it was just to like restrain them. I wouldn't be throwing punches and stuff like that. I don't think.
Yep, I agree, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot or anything. But
no, that's okay.
It's gonna cut us off, but I will send you a new link. But ending the interview, it was a real honor and privilege having you as a guest, and I can't wait for part 2. I just want to say thank you for your time.
Thank you. I love what you're doing, man. Keep it up.
Hey kid,